Hello everybody, this is Chaz in Omaha, here to bring you my version of the Smite Hammerdin. First thing, we can go ahead and go through the standard gameplay. So you basically just kind of run around and you throw your hammers like this. You throw 3, move forward, throw 3, move forward, throw 3, move forward. And then every once in a while you just push sigils to spend your mana. You want to throw 3 at a time if you can get in the habit of doing that. That's just because it allows you to keep up your zeal buff, which gives you damage and crit strike. But the other reason is if you throw them all at once like this and then stop for a while, the field of your hammers kind of thins and dissipates. So when you run into a group of enemies like this, it doesn't do quite as well. But if you do this, the field stays more consistent. So when you run into a group of enemies, it like makes them all explode. Yeah? You also want to be watching your mana, assuming that you're using the devotion neck. You want to try and keep yourself as close to 0 mana as possible, because it makes your smites a lot stronger. And then when you get up to single target enemies, you can go ahead and toss a spear out. And the spear will also... Oh, I guess the spear doesn't cast smites on dummies. But anyways, the spear will cast a smite also. And this field will also provide you a bunch of healing on the ground. You can use shield charge or lunge, unspect, however you want. You don't really need a movement skill because you have an extremely high amount of movement speed on this build. But, you know, you can use one just because you feel like it. That's pretty much it for gameplay. As far as strengths of this build go, the first strength is that it has very high base movement speed. Mostly because of a passive in the Paladin tree here that gives you 12%. But you have freedom on stats too, because you get a lot of free resists on this character, so I use 1 movement speed ring because it makes it really, really easy to dodge mechanics. It also has very, very high AoE damage. Like, if this was a group of monsters, right? Let me put my sigils up. It procs AoE lightning like crazy, right? And if you have a group of, you know, like 10 mobs or something, and you have a field of hammers going like I do have here, they literally just insta explode. It is really cool. The last strength I would say is that it's very, very tanky. It has it can have easily extremely high armor with barely even trying to get it. When you have sigils up, you have an extremely high block chance. And also, when you're standing right next to an enemy like this, every single time one of these smites falls, you get healed for a crap ton. And the spear itself, for when you're not able to like spam smites, gives you a really good amount of healing also. As far as weaknesses go, the first weakness is that while you're leveling, it has a somewhat awkward transition between like hammer throw DPS and smite DPS. Usually we don't even have smite on our bars. And it's kind of a mandatory transition, even if you have the idols that you need to play the build, just because like there's a certain point in the story where you'll have smite, but you just don't have enough space in your idol inventory to wear the idols that you need, and they only come in the one shape. So it's not a big one, but it is something that kind of annoyed me when I was playing. The second weakness is that it absolutely requires this idol prefix. The smite when you hit with throwing attacks. If you have at least 2 of them with a decent proc chance, you'll be fine. But ideally, you really do want all 4 of them. The last weakness, and this isn't really a weakness, but some people might be really annoyed by it. When you're using the devotion neck, which you ideally want to, you do need to watch your mana. And you want to keep it like this, right? You want to keep it as low as possible, like at all times, because it increases your spell damage by a very large amount to have as close to 0 mana as possible. But you don't want to yourself, because then you'll like temporarily be able to you'll have an issue like not being able to throw hammers temporarily. this issue can happen, like, if you forget to watch for it for a while, sometimes you control yourself, and, like, you'll go to push sigils right now, and then you'll, like, Omega Ohm yourself. I do that sometimes. It annoys me. It's not a big deal, but, you know, it's a thing. That's about it for strengths and weaknesses. So we can go ahead and talk about the skills. While I'm talking about the skills, I'm also going to suggest the path you might take while leveling for each skill, and maybe any notes about skill swaps that you do during leveling. So we started with hammer throw. No matter which way you're doing it, you're going to start with hammer throw because it's basically your bread and butter. It's basically how you attack, right? So you would want to start out by going right here to Iron Spiral. Do not go immediately to Hammer Vortex or you will be Omega Don't do it right at the beginning. Bad idea. So you stop here, then you go over here to the first point in Catapult, which gives you an extra projectile, and it makes it cost even a little more mana. But then you're going to want to go into Ballista. Now at this point, while you're playing, you're going to kind of want to decide when to fill this up and when to get Hammer Vortex. And this is based on basically just mana consumption. If you're barely staying at decent mana, don't go over here and don't put the next point in here. And this mana balance is determined largely by how long it takes for you to get that first affix right there on my ring. You need to get both hammer throw reduction costs on both rings as soon as you can, so that you're able to get the extra point in this and this to give you extra hammers, plus having them spiral around you instead of in place, yeah? So other than that, in hammer throw, you'll get this point, you'll do this dance right here between these two until you are like really, really saturated with mana because your cost is so low. Then you get this hammer vortex, and once you've finished all of this stuff, then you put just the minimum 2 in rapid throw and go to Zeal. Zeal is the reason why you kind of do the throw 3 move, throw 3 move, throw 3 move. Yeah? You max this out, and then the last points you put in rapid throw. Quick shout out, you could get some points here in Armor Shred. If you had just a few points in here and you didn't have Armor Shred like I do on these idols, I would say that a few of points in here instead of in here probably would be a very good bonus, because the very first like 10 or 20 Armor Shred stacks are very potent compared to successive stacks. So you might think about that until you have Armor Shred somewhere else. So next we have the Spear. Now for leveling in general, I would suggest specializing in the Spear second, and that's just because this node right here, Banner of Restoration, is really, really good healing while you're leveling. It makes leveling, like when you fight bosses or big enemies, it makes it way easier. You could spec Shield Charge second if you're confident in your ability to stay alive and you just want to level faster, and then you would just probably max out this mana efficiency node so it doesn't cost like a crap ton of mana. You can see it costs 47 for me, so it's, you know, it's pretty expensive. So that is an option while leveling. Anyways, in the Spear, you pretty much just beeline over here to the Banner. You probably want to get at least a little bit of the Restoration one before you get just one in the duration, and then go down here for the Smite casting. This lets it cast Smites. This lets it cast way more frequency with a slightly stronger crit chance. Eventually that doesn't really matter, but the frequency is still good. And then you max out the duration. This point right here for Armor Shred is just kind of because there's one point left that I don't really feel like using. You have two options for this point other than this, because this point is kind of useless. It's just like the only one that does anything for me. There's one where you can get enemies to carry the battle flag when they walk over it. I hate this. I'd rather be able to place the flag exactly where I want it and have it not move. That way this healing aura isn't like moving randomly. The other option is you could use this thing that allows it to be a movement skill. I didn't really like the increased cooldown duration, but this is also another option for that last point. So you could experiment with these and see if you like them. The next spec is you want Holy Aura. You're going to want to get this before Smite, because right when you are level 20-ish, Smite's kind of unusable because you're just not in the point in the game where you have enough idle slots to unlock smiting with your hammers. So I would do Holy Aura third. You get attack speed, which is really good. You get crit chance right here, which is really good. And then you get crit multi. For starting as leveling, I would go this way first. And that's just because at the point that you get this, you're probably going to be doing mostly physical damage. So it's better early on. I would go here, then go to attack speed, and then go over to crit chance. As soon as you start transitioning over to smite, go ahead and put 2 points in here, then remove those as soon as you get these two. That way you can get this instead, which does almost nothing still, but it's more than the absolute zero this is. And then you can kind of make the decision between crit multi and getting free elemental res and endurance. It's just offense versus defense. You can make your own choice on this one. I think I kind of went back and forth. I don't really remember which order I did it. I don't think it really matters all that much. So right around level 35, well, this is when this unlocks, and right around the time that this does unlock for the 4th skill, I think right after or right at the same time, give or take, you're going to start being able to get enough space in your idle inventory to actually start proccing smite with your hammers. So for smite, I suggest you just go straight up into this lightning conversion thing, and then get this lightning bolt thing. This makes your AoE way, way, way better. You don't care about the mana cost because proccing them from hammers, it doesn't do anything. It doesn't cost any mana, so don't worry about that. And then after that, you're going to want to go down into this sacrifice versus atonement. And I would kind of suggest just going back and forth between these two. You could probably put 2 in this, then go 1 here if you wanted to get damage faster. It won't kill you all that badly at only 2 points. As far as atonement goes, I've seen a lot of builds use only 4 in this node. And I would only suggest using only 4 in this node if you happen to have the lightning leech affix on your weapon, which I do not have. I only have unfortunate elemental damage. And I think if you don't have that, you want 5 in this. I tried it with 4. Even at only 3% of your health per smite, you can omega murder yourself with the amount of smites you can put out on big trash packs. So I think you definitely go 5 here. I think it's super worth sacrificing 25% crit multi to not murder yourself. Then after you're done doing this dance between these two, I would move on to the base crit chance and max this out. And then finally, extra points after this just kind of go here. If you manage to get a +3 or +4 to smite, good for you. You can put a lot more in this and it'll gain you significant amounts of damage. And then lastly, we have Sigils. Kind of a maintenance buff, but it also allows you to keep your mana down to get maximum spell damage benefit from the Devotion neck. And it also allows you to circumvent the problem of Kolnavars where it randomly eats your mana, as you see it just did for me. Every time you have 35 mana, just push Sigils. Get in the habit, just practice early on. So for Sigils, I would go immediately to duration. And then once you have the duration, you kind of have a choice to make. I would go to cast speed because I feel like not having cast speed on this feels pretty bad. I don't even like having a cast. I tried the instant cast at first, but I found that during boss fights, the extra 10 mana just didn't work out. It just didn't work out. It was too much, and so I stopped using this one, which is unfortunate because it feels really good when it's instant cast. So yeah, I would get the duration. Then I'd probably go over to get cast speed. Alternatively, if you don't really care about that, you could just go ahead and get some block chance. You can get your extra sigil. The order you do this one doesn't really matter all that much other than duration. You definitely want duration first. So that's pretty much it for skills and the order in which you'd use them. So next we can just go ahead and talk about gear. So, for headpiece, I like this base the best. Crit multi, it's pretty good. You know, you don't have to use that. You can use the 400 armor helm. It's a pretty good amount of defense. For neck, you definitely just want devotion. This build will work without devotion, but I imagine the damage output potential is far lower. This is very good. Devotion, as long as you're diligent with using your mana correctly. If you can't be bothered to use your mana correctly, you're going to find a much lower rate of return for this. For For shields, I like the max block chance, but obviously the 30% with Omega effectiveness is also a good option. You pretty much want block chance, health. Instead of armor, I think that percent damage taken is much better, especially since you're upwards of 70+% block with this build. Block effectiveness or healing effectiveness are both good. If I had the option, I probably would seal one and have the other at tier 5. And instead of that armor, I would have percent reduction. For chest, the increased armor shred effect, I would recommend getting that. Even at tier 1, it's very potent. For some reason, the tier 1 of this affix is over half the potency of tier 5. Kind of weird. Other than that, you just kind of get vit and resist like you normally would. For the weapon, so you don't have to use Kulnavars. You could use a wand of any other sort, and you could use a scepter of any other sort that has good spell damage. I like the Kulnavars simply because it gives you extra mana regen. Mana regen from Kulnavars plus belt feels just about perfect, so I like that. Obviously, you get extra spell lightning damage there, and you also get spell lightning spell critical strike chance. Without that, it would be pretty near impossible to get 100% smite crit. So, I suggest using this weapon, but you don't really need to. You could use any scepter or wand you want. Keep in mind, if you do use a wand, this node does not work with a wand. So, if you use a wand, you know, put these points somewhere else, I guess. And then, okay, so for rings, this is very important. You need the throwing attack reduction as soon as possible and forever. Right? Ideally, what you would do is you would find a ring with a tier 1 throwing like this, and you seal the tier 1 throwing. That's ideally what you would do, so that you could get throwing attack speed and crit chance. I've been unable to accomplish this. You can see both of mine just have tier 1 on there. This one, obviously, I sealed lightning because that's what it came with. Unfortunate. But that's the idea. Good luck. Maybe you'll be luckier than I am. For belt, get mana regen. Just get this. You just want one thing of mana regen. If you don't have one thing of mana regen on here, you're going to notice it, because it's going to be really hard for you to constantly throw hammers and keep your sigils up at the same time without it. Boots, standard, you know, get health, movement speed. Here you just want to get plus smite, right? Plus smite is huge, huge damage for this build because you get crit multi for every extra point, right? And then for gloves, it's basically the same as rings. You get crit throwing attack speed and you get some hybrid health on there. One thing I would mention about gear while you're leveling, at the beginning, it really doesn't freaking matter what weapon you use. You could even use a two-hander. The only thing that really does anything at the beginning for throwing, as far as weapons are concerned, is either like implicit crit on a dagger, like the Smoke Weaver here, right? If you had an implicit crit dagger at the beginning, that would actually be really good. Or you could just use a two-hander that has like 100% fizz damage. That would be fine. The base damage on your weapon when you're only using hammer throw is totally irrelevant. Yeah? Next, we can go over the passives. So in the base Sentinel tree, you have all this vitality, and now at endgame, I would definitely just use vitality. However, while you're leveling, this node at the very beginning has a lot of merit. I think I myself put a few points in here just to get really early damage, and then later spec'd out when strength no longer did anything for me. You get 1 point in here specifically for the percent block chance. We do that a few places. This thing is disgusting. You definitely want this, even while leveling. 10% less damage taken is just absurd. Definitely get this maxed out while you're early on. These are filler just to get up here. In the base tree, I would stop right at 20, as you normally do with most characters. I would not continue on, and then I would jump immediately to the paladin tree. This node is really nice while you're leveling because it works for both lightning and fizz, so you can just go ahead and use this right away, right? This one, once again, just for percent block. This node right here is disgustingly strong. However, while you're leveling, like at the point that you're here and spending points in here, it actually doesn't do anything. I'm kind of lazy and just went ahead and put points in here because I was smashing everything. You could move these points somewhere else useful. I'm not sure where. Here, this would be kind of useful. This would be a little useful. Yeah, this would be a little useful. You could move these somewhere else while you're leveling, and then as soon as you actually care about smite damage, you could respec and put them here. I didn't bother. I just filled it up and got no gain, and it didn't seem to matter for me. You get some free health and necrotic res. I wouldn't pick this one up before this one, though, because this one gives you offense and defense, like a shit ton of offense. But you probably want this not too much far behind getting into empowered monoliths, right? Because you want to have the crit strike avoid maxed out as soon as possible. So I would do this one first while leveling. Another 5% block chance, so you can see why we're getting really high on block chance. This one, you probably do this one a little later. I don't remember how the points work out. And then as I would beeline in Paladin all the way up to Light of Rhea, and I would just max this right away because I love the movement speed personally. As soon as you get this maxed out, or you feel like you don't really care as much about the movement speed that I do, then you can go into Void Knight. You get a bunch of free resists. Once you start putting points into this, you might start thinking about the fact that you have a free 40 void and physical for gearing purposes. And then you put 1 point in here for a free 11% crit multi, which is absurdly powerful for 1 point. Once you've maxed out the Void Knight, I would jump into Forge Guard and put the 1 point here to get the 2% block chance. Then you can finish up this or this if you don't have it maxed at that point. And then at the very end, I would fill in the base. These points right here should be your 90 plus points, yeah? Now we're gonna go ahead and show you some gameplay videos of some bosses and an arena to give you an idea of how it actually plays. With my extremely shiny hobo set of armor, I'm super hobo and super shiny. E? But E's for effort, man. What are you talking about? How can you give anything other than E for effort? I don't understand. I had to fight to lose it all. Doesn't he? How are those hitting me? I'm not anywhere close to them, man. That's crap. Don't be crap, game. Up there. Excellent. Uh-oh, I'm gonna die. Woo! Guys, that was close. I almost died. Again. We're skirting it. We're threading the needle. We're threading the needle. That's what you gotta do, right? For efficiency, you gotta thread the needle. Up here, bro. Thank you. Dude, that ability, they need to fix that ability. Like, really badly. It's straight up broken. You are broken, sir. You're drunk and broken. And I don't appreciate it. Hey. Hey, Marks. Just do it. I'm like half nerd and half not nerd. I guess I'm probably like 66% nerd, 33% not nerd. Because I've had a lot of... In my past, I've had a lot of, like, physical hobbies, like, extreme physical hobbies, too. But I've always been big into music and computers, too, so... Shia LaBeouf? What happened to him? I don't know. What did happen to him? Are you saying, like, why is he not making movies, or did you just hear something happen? I don't know. The last thing I remember Shia LaBeouf being in was that gun movie where they could bend bullets. That's the last, and that was a while ago, right? That was probably 5 years ago, or maybe more. You'd have to do some Google foo, man. I don't really follow celebrities. The only way I would know is if somebody told me. Went crazy, probably. Howard Hughes style. Too much money. Became afraid of the viruses. Drugs. I mean, yeah, probably. That's probably accurate. Dude, what is this arena? Why are they taking so long to get to me? It's because of these stupid crawly birds, man. The loss of the blessing is exacerbated by the affix. Oh, it's the blood one. This guy hurts. Those blood orbs. Those hurt. Although your body double in the center just dies instantly to this character. Lol. Let's get away from that. Blood orbs. Oh, blood orbs. Wait, how did that one hit me? What? Bro. That didn't make any fucking sense. This was taking a while. That took a while. Alright, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope that it was helpful for you if you decide to make this build. Please like, comment, and subscribe to help me with the YouTube algorithm, and I'll see you guys again next time.